Yeah, I don't hear you.
I hear you. Katie's here. She was just here too. I don't know what's up with that because we were just talking to her.
Nope, still no. Oh, there you go.
Oh my God, I'm here. I promise I'm here. I'm gonna do the whole show with like, I don't know, signals or something.
Mime.
Let's start again. Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. I'm Katie, joined by Chris and John. Take two. How's it going, fellas?
Excellent. Sorry.
If you ever wondered if we're really human, the answer is yes.
Yes. Clearly not AI generated in any way.
Well, and Chris, you're on the wrong mic, so we're off to an excellent start today. This week, oh my God.
There we go.
Woo! This week, we are walking through how to analyze your survey data with generative AI. We did this a few years ago, but so much has changed. And one of the things that we're really striving for in 2026 is making sure we're showing you both lower tech, easy entry solutions, but then also the higher tech, more advanced solutions, because there's room for both of them. And we know that our audience, and then also internal to our team, there's a need for both versions. So Chris was showing me this earlier, and we actually, on the podcast this week, if you want to go to trustinsights.ai/TI podcast, Chris and I spent a decent amount of time talking about the low-tech solution that you can use now with your Google Sheets, which I think is very exciting. I think it's a really good game changer for people who are like, I have all this data, I don't know what to do. But then we can get into sort of the bigger, more advanced stuff. So Chris, where would you like to start this week?
We should probably talk this through. So this is going to use Google's Gemini and Google Sheets. We are not paying subscribers to Microsoft Copilot. My understanding is that Copilot fundamentally does about the same thing in the current version of Excel, and it uses Copilot's models on the back end. And for what we're doing today, that's okay. I mean, I have a lot of ranty pants things to say about Copilot's models, but that's for another show.
That's for another show.
It totally is. Or at the bar, at the next event. So first things first, we are going to need to get our data, of course, which comes, in our case, this is coming straight out of, we run our surveys on Gravity Forms in WordPress. So it's just literally a plugin for WordPress. Someone comes in, fills out the form. I've removed the personal identifying information so that we're not sharing people's private emails and stuff on the air. And what we've got here is just a spreadsheet where every column in every cell in row C is an answer. Some of them are multi-paragraph, some of them are single paragraph. Now,
can I back up even a step further from that to sort of share where this data came from in the first place?
Sure.
So we have tried, and to be fair, I have been a little remiss in getting this done, but one of our goals is to run a 1-question survey every quarter. And the goal of that survey is to help us understand what's going on with our audience, what's going on in the industry, what's going on with people who are taking the time to read our content. So it's the Trust Insights 1-question survey, still live. You can answer it at any time. And our question this quarter was, if you could attend one deep dive webinar in 2026 to solve your biggest business or marketing challenge, what specific topic would you want to cover? And the reason we asked this question, not only for our own, planning purposes, but the topic of AI is obviously very prevalent. Everybody's talking about different versions of it. What do we do with it? But it's not enough for us to just say, okay, here's a webinar on how to do AI. Like, that's too broad. So we wanted to know specifically if you could deep dive into anything. We didn't want to limit it to AI or just marketing, but anything. And we got a wide variety of responses, very helpful responses, because there's still a lot of people wanting to know about just digital marketing that doesn't include AI or measurement or KPIs or organic search or, a lot of topics that aren't necessarily AI, which I found to be incredibly helpful. But unsurprisingly, majority of our data is around, what do I do with agentic? How do I do this? How do we do that? And so that gives us a really good understanding of how we as a company can better serve our audience, making sure we're giving them what they're asking for, not just what we think they're asking for. So I just want to set that context of here's where this survey data came from.
Exactly. And that's a great segue, because you can see this is a paragraph, right? This is a big text box. So you can put whatever you want in there. It's not multiple choice. It's not anything. And by the way, slight sidebar, this is the way we should be doing surveying now in 2026, because the days of a static drop down that you have to, check a box or whatever things are gone. Generative AI, language models are very capable of parsing language. So there's no excuse anymore to say, for data analysis, we can only have a drop down with these 8 choices. No, let people say what they want. And you can use language models to understand that language. Drives me up a wall when I see, like, how'd you hear about us? There's 5 choices and they're all from choices from the 1990s. Like, no, I haven't gotten a postcard that I remember in quite some time.
News/print, email, referral,
Radio.
Google search, radio. Oh, I miss radio ads. They were good. Anyway, let's go on.
So we take those responses and we put them into a Google Sheet. Now, here's what's new in pretty much everybody's office software. You can now invoke a language model like Google Gemini right inside of a sheet on a cell-by-cell basis. The formula for this in Google Sheets, unsurprisingly, is Gemini. And there's a prompt, and then you give it a range. Because we're processing individual survey results, we don't want to use a whole range. We want to do literally cell by cell. But before we do that, we have to know what we're analyzing. We have to figure out, like, what are the things that we would want to know. So, Katie, what are some of the things that you might want to know out of these survey results?
I want to know the large buckets of categories of how people responded. So, topic category. But then I would want to know within each of those topics, sort of what the subtopics are. Because so let's say the topic and category is agentic AI. Well, that's a pretty big topic. So I'd want to know within that, people are wanting to know like how-tos or, what is, so that we can make sure we're appropriately answering those questions.
Right. So let's call this topic. Let's call this subtopic. What else might you want to know?
Maybe I think you had put in, which I thought was interesting, in an earlier version, sentiment.
Yep.
And so sentiment is basically at a high level, is this a positive thing? Is this a negative thing? In this context, I think it's an interesting data point. I don't know how necessarily useful it is. But I think at the very least, like we can say, oh, this is what it is, but then it's not necessarily useful. And we can always take it out.
Yeah, I think the reason I put that in is because I might want to know, do people feel differently about agentic AI than they do, say, regular AI? Do people feel differently about analytics? Like, I hate Google Analytics 4. Like, okay, clearly this is still a very sore topic with people. John, is there anything you would want to know out of this data?
The thing that I just love about this is because I've been on the other side of it so many times, where you do these surveys where you get 10, 20,000 results in, and most of the time it just goes to a bunch of bar graphs. Like, nobody pays any attention to the individual stuff. So yeah, sentiment is the number one thing for me, because there's never been an easy way to, more easier than it is today, to just say, hey, categorize them as far as how many are the top tier champions that love us to death, and, show me the 5 most horrible ones, and all those kinds of querying tools are more powerful than ever before. So I love all that stuff. The other one is to find all of those things and issues that you just can't do if you manually go through the results. For software stuff, you can say, show me the 3 features that people have the biggest problems with, and show me the 4, features that need to be fixed or added. To be able to mine it for that kind of stuff. All that is just, that's the most exciting thing going in AI for me right now.
Yep. Here's a question. As our biz dev guy, would you be interested in maybe a 0 to 5 scale of urgency, where somebody's like, I'm just curious about this thing, whereas I want to buy something right now?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and Katie has done a good job with the fact that, we don't just send the survey out and then I start pummeling people the next day, cold calling.
I know it's tempting, but please don't.
There's a lot of, well, oh, you want that? What does it take to get in this car today? But we don't have to, we don't want to jump all over them. The big thing is there always will be too. I say that, but on the other side of my mouth, a lot of times when you get big enough, there will be 4 or 5 people per 1,000 that it just happened to hit them on the day that, we're looking to buy right now. We're in the middle of the purchase. So, and then that, if somebody raises their hand and I'm actually looking to buy, those people do get a call back right away. So, but knowing their heat, I guess you could qualify you could do all of BANT too. It'd be great to be like, hey, segment these results by budget. Let me see them by company size. Is there stuff that the bigger companies like or don't like that's totally different from the small ones? Authority too. Are we talking to a bunch of weaklings? Or are these the decision makers? And then need, how much do you like this stuff? And timeline too. How many people are talking about doing something in 0 to 3 months versus over the next 4 years? So all that stuff is worthwhile.
Okay, so I think those. Go ahead, Katie.
I was going to say, I think for today's purposes, I think urgency is good, but I think even just picking up on almost like a yes/no column of, did they say in there, can you help me? Or can you do this? Or, so sort of looking for those cues, because, we have a couple of hundred here that we can sort of go through manually, but it would be helpful to know sort of even just sort of like to sort down to a smaller list. Did they say immediately oh, and do you do this? Or can you help me? Or, is this something I can buy from you? Like that. And when you're getting a lot of data, being able to pull that out and immediately give it to someone like John, who's like, give me more people to talk to, happy to do that. Because if they raise their hand and say that, that's great. And we've done that on previous surveys where we've added an additional question of, and do you want us to reach out to you, for the service? 100% of people said no, which is why I stopped asking that question. I was like, okay, that's pretty clear. They just want to give us their feedback. They're not looking to get pitched.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got 2 categorical columns, topic and subtopic. We have a binary column, intent, yes or no, and we have 2 numeric columns, sentiment, urgency. Now we have to actually build this thing. So here's how we're going to do this. First things first, we need to figure out what those topics and subtopics are. So for this, we're going to use regular Google Gemini. And the reason we're going to use regular Google Gemini is because regular Google Gemini, A, you can specify the most powerful model, which is the Pro model. And B, you can give it the entire data set all at once to think through broadly what are those things. So what we would say here is, well, first we need to give it the file itself, which would be a useful thing to have. So let's go ahead and drop in the file. Even though this is a CSV, it's only got 1 column, and that's the text of the responses. So that's perfectly safe to use here. And we're going to give it a prompt. We're going to say, read through the corpus of survey results attached. What we want to understand are the 5 to 6 major topics in the results, plus 2 to 3 subtopics per major topic. Present your results as a markdown list with the major topic on the first level and the subtopic on the second level. And so we want Gemini to try to think this through. We do not have to get exact counts here. And in fact, that would be a terrible idea, because a straight language model like this can't count. They're incapable of doing math well. That's why we're using Google Sheets. But it absolutely can explore the text space around all these free-form responses. This, by the way, is what people should be using language models for, is to take that unstructured, free-form text and distill it down so that you can then apply categories to it. So let's see how Gemini is doing here. Oh, actually, it looks like it was writing some of its own code along the line. You can see that because it's popped a little code bubble there. But based on the survey responses, here are the major topics and subtopics identified in the results: AI strategy and organization adoption, change management, AI governance, strategic planning, AI agents and automation, building and deploying, workflow automation, technical execution, marketing strategy and analytics, attribution reporting, content strategy and SEO, role-specific assistance, practical AI implementation, aka vibe coding, coding and app development, tool integration, practical use cases, major tool ecosystems, Copilot, Workspace, Notebook LM, and business operations on scaling, small business, knowledge management, and operational efficiency. So Katie, does that seem to fit with what you've read in the results?
It does. And I, even at a high level, this to me would be incredibly helpful. Like I could take this, just this, and build out a content calendar, but I'm excited to see, where we go next with this. But yeah, so far, because unsurprisingly, I've, been paying attention and read every single result that has come in and have been mentally banking them. So it's really nice to see that that's what Gemini is also coming up with, is in terms of categories.
Right. So now what we want to do is we want to start assigning categories. To do this, if you want to save your sanity, please start a new sheet. We're going to call the sheet prompts. And in the first column, we'll have the prompt name. And the second column will have the actual prompt. And we're going to have a category for a topic, subtopic. We're going to have one for sentiment. We're going to have one for urgency. And we're going to have one for intent. We should rename that, rearrange that so it spells the word suits.
So it's
yes.
Please, no acronyms today. We're not developing anything new.
Surprise!
Oh my goodness, I can't.
Now, here's the catch with Google Sheets. If you're used to writing very long prompts, they have to fit in a cell. And cells can occupy a lot of text, but they can't have things like line breaks in them, which is highly problematic. So what we're going to want to do here is have Gemini help us write the prompt that will fit inside one basically big honking paragraph. And that is what it can then reference in the sheet. So let me give you a concrete example of this. I'm going to start off by saying, I'll start a new document here. Let's classify the text in the cell based on the major topics provided. The major topics are the topic headings. Generate and return just the major topic. And so that's our first part of the prompt. And our second part of the prompt is going to be what those major topics are. And we're going to copy and paste that. Now, here's what we're going to do. To make this work in Google Sheets, I went ahead and I created a gem called the Google Sheets gem. And all it's going to do is, here is the prompt to optimize. It's basically going to read through this and figure out how do I put this all in one paragraph so that Google Sheets will not blow up when we get it back. And it will have to think this through, obviously, to make sure that it is intelligent. But once it's done, we can then put that in the sheet and then reference it. So it's thinking through the taxonomy. It's thinking through all the pieces. And it should, if I did it right in the gem, come up with two different options. And then we can decide which of the two options makes the most sense. As a pro tip, don't ask any AI to give you the thing, because it will only give you the most high probability. Ask it to give you options so that it forces the model to think a little more broadly.
One of the pro tips that we had talked about last year, which perhaps we've sort of debunked it, is what questions do you have, or ask me one question at a time until you have a satisfactory amount of information. Is that still in this a tactic that you would employ, or are you really just looking for options?
For this specific use case, we're asking it just for the options, because the gem is like 4 pages long so I use those tips for like ask me one question at a time to build the gem itself.
Got it. Okay. And that's a helpful distinction. Because I think that when a lot of us hear like, oh, and here's a pro tip and here's the thing, we're trying to employ all of them at once, and it gets very overwhelming. And then the prompts themselves become very cumbersome.
Yep. Okay, so now we've got our topic prompt, and we now need to generate the subtopic prompt, which is going to look very similar. We're going to say, let's classify the text in the cell based on the major topic in the first column and choose which of the subtopics is the best fit for the survey response text. So we're going to take the exact same thing, start a new chat with our gem, and put that in and let it do its thing. While it's doing that, I'm gonna wire up this first one. So we've got our prompt. It's in cell B2. So let's go here to our topic. We're gonna go Gemini. Prompt is in prompts $B $2. And then the range is just E2. And yes, I know Gemini can make mistakes. And so it has now executed that prompt. And this is why we want the prompts in a separate sheet, because if I would just drag and drop that prompt all the way down this entire sheet, this would have that prompt repeated over and over and over again, and nobody wants that. It would take forever and a day for it to do that. So instead, we reference the prompt on the other sheet, and it does this whole thing for us very nicely. So here, in our first pass through, we have the topics themselves. Now, let's go back to Gemini. And it has come up with a second set of instructions. So we're going to put this massive, gigantic, huge blob into the subtopic. So now we have the subtopic prompt. Let's get the third prompt, our sentiment prompt, baking while we get this second one in place. So go into our optimizer, and this time we're just going to give it something relatively straightforward. We're going to say, do some sentiment analysis on this block of text. How would you score it, -5 to +5, and let it think its things through. While it's doing that, I'm now going to use Gemini prompts. This is B3, right? And then the range for this is A2, F2. I believe that's how you do range. And closing parenthesis. No, it's not how I do that. Oh, dear.
Is it colon instead of comma?
Is it colon? It's running into the issue. It's self-referencing itself. It's creating a circular reference.
Hmm.
All right, let's ask Gemini, because one of the nice things is Gemini is built into itself here. How do I fix this formula so that it references cell A2 and F2? And then I'll just give it this. Oops, stop. And we'll see what it does. This, by the way, again, this is available in Copilot as well in Excel. Oh, look, that was easy. It says you just need to put it in commas. Shows you how good I am at this. Warning. That it says, okay, well, that's great. Great, but this is yelling at me. Okay, so I did that.
Well, do it again.
Clearly. AI function cannot be used with other functions. Oh, okay.
So what does that mean?
Yeah, basically, it can't have a sub function in there. So here's what you do. But that's secretly, we're just secretly going to put together a column that says concatenate.
This is like spreadsheet judo today on Trust and Things.
But you know what's interesting about it, John, is that this is the low-tech version, because we're not writing code. We're literally just trying to summarize and categorize the qualitative data, which is where a lot of people get stumped of like, there's so much information. How do I know? And this is the low-tech version of that. We could bring it into Colab or Claude Code or something and have, Python code written. But what I wanted to make sure we did was show, if you're savvy with Excel, great, you're already ahead of the game. Now you can still do that. and but get the benefits of generative AI. So it's that nice blend of, your high tech in Excel, but you want the low tech AI solution, but you still want to benefit from it.
So let's see if our little magical hack there it is. So by just doing a concatenate in a column along the side, we now have the subcategories for each of these things.
Nice.
Now let's check in on our sentiment prompt here. Let's see. Let's do it says do the version A is robust. We'll use the version A. Paste that in. And while I'm going to have it do the urgency one next, start a new chat.
And for the purposes of the live stream, obviously we're on sort of a bit of a limited time. So it's that and magically it's already cooked in the oven kind of thing. We still highly recommend, human intervention, making sure that the data is coming out correct, making sure that the prompts that are being written make sense to you, making sure that sentiment analysis is reading as the way you want it to, the positive, negative, that it all makes sense. So, for the purposes of the live stream, Chris is going through this a little bit more quickly. But in real life, outside of, a time constraint, you would want to make sure that you're really double and triple checking everything that AI is giving you back.
Exactly. So here we have our prompt for urgency. And we're going to do Gemini prompts B5 F2 urgency level low urgency. All right. And now what we'd want to do next is figure out, okay, well, we've got all this level, these different levels and things like that. What do we do with this?
Mm-hmm.
At the most basic level, we probably want to tabulate by topic and subtopic to see what are the things people ask about, how many of those things are there. So we'll start a new sheet in here, and I have the foggiest idea how to do this. No clue whatsoever, but I don't have to. I can literally say to Gemini, I need help tabulating. I need help tabulating the answers in column A of sheet 1 by count, topic by count. Can you do that for me in sheet 2? And let's see what it comes up with. This to me is the most useful thing about having your AI here in these systems, is to say help me how to do this. This sheet appears to be empty. Of course it's empty. Oh, in column A of sheet 1, let's call this answers. Counts. And I'm going to say in column A of the answers sheet, can you do that for me in the counts sheet? Now let's see if it recognizes the names that we've given it now. No. All right. I'm going to cheat here and just go over to the formulas we used in the previous version of the sheet, which is I'm going to do a unique. So this is topic, and this is count. We're going to do a unique sheet 1. Oh no, it's answers. And this is A2 through A999. I think I'm missing a closing quote. There you go. Formula parse error answers. Why does this not work? Does not use backslash exclamation point. Backslash is called the form of fail corrector. Unique. Just do this. There we go. And now, in the next column, we have to do the count if. We'll count if and what's the formula for this? Answers A2, A999, A3. A2. All right, so now we have our basic chart. We have our basic results. We have 8 uncategorized. We have marketing strategy analytics. Let's put this into a nice bar chart. I said bar chart. And there you go, Katie. There's the answers from our survey.
I like it. To satisfy my OCD, can you go to the... I need you to do a couple things for me. Spreadsheets are very... Can you please go to the answer sheet? And can you please freeze the top row? People who don't do that are maniacs, and I can't believe people can work that way.
Okay. I think that did.
No. Okay. Cancel that.
Okay.
Go to view.
Go to view.
Go to freeze.
Freeze row 1.
One row. Yep.
There you go.
Now, can you do me a solid and sort the topic?
Sort the topic.
So that we have sort of the, yeah. Because everything was sort of like mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more helpful to me. It's like, oh, here's everything under AI agents and automation, and then the subtopics next to it.
Got it. Okay.
So basically, I'm trying to look at the clusters together. So then if you go to the counts, so obviously it's going to adjust based on what we have on answers, or you can sort and filter the count column, which is column B, sort of biggest to smallest.
Right. And we could actually do this with the subtopic too, to drill down into what the subtopics are.
But to your point, yes, this tells me what I'm looking for. The first thing I would go looking for as me is what's unassigned. What's in those that it can't be assigned.
Right. Which we go down the bottom. And then how do you pick winning lottery numbers? Tell me everything Katie knows so I can be just like her.
So it's the junk stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Which is also helpful to know.
Yep. Now here's the next thing is, what do we do with all this information? So one of the things that we want to know that you could do in here, but you can also do elsewhere. And this is where I would personally spend some time, is take this into a system like Colab to have it start doing that statistical analysis. Like, what is the relationship between sentiment and intent, or sentiment and urgency and things, so that we could ask those questions? Because maybe there's some topics that, yes, it's a frequent topic, but there's no buying intent. No one's going to buy anything from us on it. They just want to broadly know something about it, or things. And that's what you can do that inside here. But it's probably faster to do it inside Google Colab.
And I think that's where we're really talking about the lower tech versus higher tech solutions. This in and of itself, without that additional analysis, can take you pretty far. This gives you a content calendar. This gives you, a direction to revise your services, or, it gives you a starting point for whatever your speaking topic is this year. Or it tells you everything that you're doing is the exact opposite of what your customers want. Now, fortunately for us, we looked at this and none of it was really a surprise. But for me, it's helpful to know that it's not all agentic AI. There is other things that people want. So if you go to the counts, for example, Chris, you see, obviously you have agentic AI, but the biggest topic, marketing strategy and analytics. That is our bread and butter. That is super helpful to know. So we're not just going to dump everything we've been doing for the past 8 or 9 years. We're going to figure out where agentic AI fits into it. We're going to figure out where business operations and scaling fits into strategy and analytics and so on and so forth, so that we're addressing all of those things, both separately and as combined topics.
Exactly. Now, when you dig into the prompt for that, one of the things that makes that category so prominent is AI ROI is in the analytics category. And then, so that's, again, where those subtopics really start to help out, is for us to be able to look and to go, oh, people want to know, how do I measure the ROI of my AI efforts?
Which completely makes sense in that category, because AI agents and automation, that's just how to build the thing. Theoretically, that's what it's in the category. That's not saying, and I want to measure my progress.
Right.
So ROI, regardless of the technology, really does belong under strategy and analytics.
Exactly. So I'm going to fill in this last column here, because I do want to get the Gemini prompt in place for intent. Go away. And as I do that, Gemini prompts B6 F2. This will give me my intent scores. Then we can take this over to Colab and have it do the data analysis on those columns, because we'll have the quantitative variable. Although it looks like it's spitting out a bit more stuff than I wanted there. That's all right. We can have it just detect the integers. Interestingly, just eyeballing this, there's a fairly diverse range here. There's nothing here that's like a 0. So it's 1, 2, and 3 is sort of the background of where this intent is, and that's actually pretty good to know for John's purpose. Like, yeah, there is some buying intent in here. It's not just looky-loos.
You can tell by John's face he's excited.
Let's make that money.
Yep. And there's obviously, and as expected, look, if you look in the 0, like, this is irrelevant chatter, no buying intent. Like, okay, that too is useful to know as a diagnostic. If you put in some intentional junk questions or junk answers, it's a way of fact checking these things. All right. So our next step then would be to say, we want to do a more thorough statistical analysis of this data file. We have survey data, so let's drop that in, and let's give it some instructions. We'll say, this is survey data that also contains sentiment, urgency, buying intent, topic, and subtopic. We want to analyze this for a few different dimensions. First, we obviously want to know the counts by topic and by subtopic. We also want to know if there's any correlation between sentiment, topic, and urgency and intent. So creating urgency and intent, the urgency and intent should be about similar in terms of their values. But we want to know, how do things like topic and subtopic and sentiment influence urgency and intent, if at all? And they may not. So that's the prompt I've given it. And we're going to have it go ahead and for those who may not have watched previous sessions where we've done work in Google Colab is going to use the Gemini model to write Python code to do the data analysis and ultimately come up with, first it's going to come up with its plan. It's like, here's my plan. I'm going to read it. I'm going to analyze and explore relationships, and then I'm going to produce a final output. Are you sure you want to run this? By the way, be careful, read it before you hit yes, auto run. Sometimes things just go bad. All right, so we can see it's already starting to build our Jupyter notebook, which is a Python notebook, and is looking at the condition of the data. It shows formula like strings, shows some weird stuff in there. So it's going to attempt to do its own cleaning on this to try and even understand what it's looking at. And it's already flagged, by the way, that might be some data quality issues in what Google Sheets spit out for itself, which I think is interesting and helpful.
What I like about Google Colab, and to your point, Chris, we've talked about it on previous episodes, is that it is still technically a low-tech solution, because you, the user, you're not writing code. You're just saying, hey, I need you to help me do this thing. Can you write the code for me? And that is specifically what this tool is meant to do. You can write code in Gemini, in ChatGPT, but that is not that is not the single function of those pieces of software. This is the single function of this piece of software. Therefore, from where I sit, that makes it the best at it in terms of, what people have access to and what it is you need to do. This is the one that you want to use if you're like, okay, I need to do something more advanced, but I can't write code. So let me find the tool that's going to do it for me. This is a great low barrier to entry way to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, this, based on the work plan and the fact that it's running into as many data quality issues, my guess is it's going to take probably 15 to 20 minutes to finish going through the baking. So the process is think through carefully what you want that prompt to be, and maybe even use your prompt optimizer to come up with it, and then let it go and churn through. So like it's starting to come up with topic distribution. It's looking at subtopics and things. Interesting, in the subtopics, practical AI implementation, coding, app development showed up there specifically in subtopics, which is a nice little interesting thing. Again, that doesn't surprise me. We know just from because like you did, Katie, I've read every single response, and I want to make AI agents was definitely a very, very hot topic.
Right.
All right, distribution of sentiment. There's a bit of a mess in there. That's going to need some cleaning up. And let's see. Yeah, now it's going to go back and do that cleaning. So when this is done, ideally we'll have an answer for John, and also for ourselves to say, when people are talking about this particular topic or subtopic, or they have this sentiment about it, they are going to buy something from Trust Insights. When they have this or this or this, they're not really buying. And it's good to create that content maybe for awareness, but we probably don't want to build a service around it because there's not enough buying intent about it.
Well, and I think that it's, again, sort of, if you just stopped at the counts in the spreadsheet, it does give you a content calendar. But to your point, it doesn't give you that additional focus because, to be fair, Chris, we're only two people. We can only create so much content. We can create a lot of content if we want it to be really kind of crappy, but if we want to create a lot of high quality content, I'm being very specific, that's actually helpful to people, my first question is, where do I start? How do I prioritize what people want the most? Just having the number of mentions isn't enough for me to say, okay, this is what's going to then translate into sales. Because if we're being completely honest, at the end of the day, we are looking to sell stuff. We're not looking to pitch these people back and say, okay, you said you have this problem, but we're looking to create things that then help them trust us to solve that problem for them, or to serve themselves. Either way, we're building that relationship through this one question survey. But then we can pass along those contacts to John and be like, this is what we did. Do you want to be the one to follow up? I'm like, hey, we answered your question. Here's the thing. Let me know if you want to start that dialogue.
Exactly. And what's so cool about using language models like this is we didn't have to ask, what is your level of buying intent, right? Because clearly anyone who's ever filled out forms like, none, I don't ever want you calling me. So not to fill that in. But if we rely on language models to parse out and think that through, we don't have to ask that question. And so part of the assignment for everybody who's watching this is to say, how much mileage can you get out of a free form response? How much can you infer from it? And we didn't even do feature engineering. There's a couple things you could do in feature engineering, one of which would be, how long was the response? The longer the response is, the more care someone put into writing it. And that itself can be an intent signal, right? If you got a one-question survey like, yeah, agent said that you went on to the next thing, okay, clearly you didn't really have a lot of intent. You gave us a page worth of, this is the 8 things I care about right now. I'm so involved in this and this. Either you have a lot of free time, you have a lot of intent.
Or you have a lot on your mind and someone took the time to ask you the question and you're like, finally I have the space to say everything that I've been thinking about. I mean, Chris, I did that to you earlier, and you were like, "Oh, you have a lot on your mind." So I see it more as that versus the free time. It's like, no, nobody's asked me what I'm thinking, and now they are. So let me go ahead and tell you. But so what I see with this, I feel like we have a really clear next step is once we get the analysis sorted out through Colab, we can then go back and say, what do we currently have that answers these questions already? Now, John, you can go through. It's not a pitch, but it's a touch where you can go through and say, hey, thank you for responding to our survey. Did you know we have this content already that answers your question? If you still have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. So it gives you that opportunity to build a relationship in a meaningful way, not just, hey, you filled out our survey. Here's the 5 things you can buy today, which everyone's going to just be like, unsub, block, get out, no more John Wall. We don't want that. We want to do it in a more thoughtful way.
Katie, do you want to talk about what else we used this survey for this week?
So the other thing we used the survey for, which I know we're starting to run up on time, was to help us figure out internally where the heck we're going with the company. Now, when I say that, it's not that we don't know. Like, I have a very clear vision, very clear plans on what we're doing next. But what this survey did was 2 things. One, it validated the plans that are in place for services and growth. But 2, it gave us a more concrete plan of specifics, which we were kind of missing before. And one of the things that, Chris, you've been working on that I thought was actually really interesting that I'm still wrapping my brain around is you brought it into Claude Code and deployed agents against it. Now, these agents are basically stand-in team members in this case. So you have a co-CEO, which is me. So I feel very confident because I helped build it that it's going to represent me. And results we got back, it very much was, which was fantastic. We have a CFO. We have a chief revenue officer, and then we have the voice of the customer, which is always important because we want to make sure we're not doing these things in a vacuum, that we're actually doing it on behalf of the person who's going to buy it. So rather than Chris and John and I sit and go, what do we do with this? How do we move it forward? Chris took everything he knew about us as Trust Insights and us as leaders, and then took the survey feedback and said, what do we do? How do we move forward? And it gave us the start of a strategic plan and said, these are the options of things that you could do. These are the likely probability things that are going to make money. And so again, this isn't okay, take those things and then, sell them back to the people who filled out the survey. It's for us internally to say, okay, how do we take what we have and refine it so that it becomes a service that people who are having these similar issues, we can solve them for them. So now Chris and I are working through the results of that, Claude Code strategy session and said, hey, we have some really good viable options that aren't going to take us a lot of extra bandwidth to put together. And then we can get out there and then John can sell the heck out of them.
Exactly. And this is all based on things like the Trust Insights ICP service, the Trust Insights Casino prompt framework for deep research. One of the things we did was we had Claude Code go through our sales playbook and say, fact check this. What things in here is there not supporting information for? And it came back and it wrote us 40 deep research prompts that I now have to go and get commissioned and set up and running. But it did a fantastic job of researching even our own assertions about who we are and what we do. Combine that with the survey data that we have, all the real words of the voice of the customer, to come up with, hey, here's what Trust Insights should do in 2026. And unlike if we had done this the old-fashioned way, it ran through this entire process in about 70 minutes with everything. Whereas, if I was doing it as a human, it'd be like a 5-week project, and I'd be, crying into my coffee at the end of every day.
Now, to be fair, it's the kind of work that I thoroughly enjoy doing. But to your point, it's really about bandwidth. And so I can take all of the I can take all of the materials. I can take the survey feedback. I can take our sales playbook. I can take what I know about our audience, voice customer, and I can manually put all of that together. I enjoy doing that work. But what I like about this is it gives me something to react to. And I still have to do the critical thinking. I still have to put those plans together. I still have to be the one to set the vision for the company. I'm not going to let AI do that for me because it doesn't know what I know thoroughly. So it brought me closer to getting to the point of an execution plan versus, to your point, like a couple of weeks of getting through everything to get to the same result.
Right. It's like basically a team of analysts that brought you the analysis. So now you can make decisions on it much, much faster.
Right.
All right. So that was survey analysis, the low tech, medium, low tech. The high tech way, obviously, is to spend some time with a tool like Claude Code. Say, here's my survey data. Give it even this example of what we just did. Say, write me some Python code that will autonomously execute this against the LLM of your choice. That's what you would want to do if you have survey results. Say, maybe you're McDonald's and you have hundreds of thousands of survey results every day. You're not going to do it in a spreadsheet. Yeah. And once you get beyond, 10,000 results, you're really going to want to automate it fully. But that's for another show. Any final words, John and Katie?
Just thrilled to dig into all the numbers. Like I said, this is the kind of stuff that people would be charting for 8 months. Like by the time you get the results, the people are dead. So it's great to have a nice, have it actionable.
Well, and I will say, quick plug. I mean, this is the kind of work that we do for ourselves, but also for our clients. So if you are buried, we call it dark data. That's always sort of been our, mission since day one, is to help shine a light on the dark data. This is still that. Give us a shout. Go to trustinsights.ai/contact. You get to talk with John. John will figure out how we can help.
Yeah. Light it up.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll talk to you all on the next one. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.